Welcome to another edition of Vigorously with me, Val Kleinhands. Loving this episode because it's chock full of metal, just like a lot of episodes are here, really. Vocalist Barbara Blackthorne is here in the building. Absolutely thrilled to have you. How are you? How are you since the move? Because you just went through that. What's the tea? What are we doing?
So, uh, you know what? No rest for the wicked.
Yeah.
Since I moved, I've been finding ways to keep busy, because I've never been one to sit still for too long. In the process of potentially moving yet again, and
Oh, again, that's how it always is.
but for good reasons, very good reasons, honestly. I wish I could go more into it, but I'm very excited. It's gonna be good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for like your patience with everything over the last couple months while I've just been adjusting to, you
Yeah.
know, the insanity.
We get it. We get it. We can always be flexible here. I want to start though with the incredible voice, okay? Because to my ears, it is a honey dripped Christina Scabbia-esque mezzo soprano tone that I am obsessed with. So I know, I
Look,
just
that's like the best compliment, really. Thank you so much.
honestly, I mean that's what I think of when I listen to you and anything you've done. Really, did you take lessons or did you just kind of naturally figure it out?
So I have taken lessons. I actually studied classical music when I was like in my teens, and then I went on to formally study opera. And that got cut short because of vocal cord nodules when I was in like
Oh.
my early 20s. And then after a break, I kind of was like, well, I don't want to not sing. And I guess I can experiment now with growling and all sorts of other things with metal. So I kind of just went full force into that. But yeah, it all started off um, just me loving to sing as a kid. And then as I got older, I was like, all right, let me learn how to use this thing.
and not damage it because
Exactly.
I can't imagine like I look at Alyssa White Goose and Angela Gasso like arch enemy like I don't know how the hell they don't shred their voice every time they're doing what they do because it's
But
it's
they're
it's like
amazing.
oh my god it's like a monster comes out of that. I mean really but there's these petite ladies. I'm like you've got to be joking. But but they talk about this like if you ever watch an interview or a documentary with them that it is important to get some sort of training so that you do protect what's going on. I haven't had a vocalist yet talk about nodules. Can you tell me about what that is and how you got through it?
So for me, I actually had something called silent reflux. The formal name is laryngopharyngeal reflux. So basically, it was a type of acid reflux that instead of typically, we think about heartburn and
Mm.
primary like damage to the esophagus, this was going for my trachea. And I had no heartburn, nothing to indicate that this was happening, other than that my voice was getting very hoarse. I was
Yeah.
coughing a lot, and I even developed asthma. And
Mm.
what happened when this occurred is that it was burning the mucosal lining off of my vocal cord, or yeah, off my vocal cords, and without something there to protect them, they're just slapping together. And over time, this is what can create a blister, and the blister calcifies. Then this is a vocal cord
Oh.
nodule, and it prevents the vocal cords from actually closing properly. So then, when this happens, air will just come out. So when I was preparing to go to conservatory, and I remember saying to my vocal coach, I was just like, I normally can hit a high A and there's nothing coming out. And she thought it was just like a mental block. And she
Mm.
was like, I know you can do this. This is in your range. Just like do it. And she was really pushing. And then I went to do it and she heard just air. And I still remember her looking at me and going, you need to go get scoped, like
Okay.
now.
So that's how to get through it. Just go talk to a professional and maybe get some exploration happening in there with the scope.
Yeah, like going to an ENT, getting that scoped out. And they're really the biggest way, the biggest non-surgical way, because surgery was an option, but mine were so small that I wasn't a good candidate, but they were big
Okay.
enough to be causing problems. So I ended up eventually just doing total voice rest for 3 months where I didn't speak at all. I just carried around a notepad and I would write everything down. The
That must
people
have
at the
been so
grocery store.
nice.
It
Like
actually kind of was.
like I don't have to talk to anybody.
It was actually pretty lovely too. My ex at the time was like super supportive, and I remember he'd accompany me on like errand runs and became like my translator. And it was kind of nice to be like and have him just handle the talking. So
Yeah.
it was actually kind of a nice period.
Have him speak Barbara for you. Put in the work.
Exactly.
I
Yep.
love it. Well, you're also a vocalist who writes too, and you've mentioned before that it's important to, for you anyway, to have your writing provide an escape for the listener. I've heard you mention this before. The way I like to frame it is that nobody listens to metal to feel powerless, period. Like we want some strength or we want an escape from whatever it is that's going on in life. So, is that your favorite part about metal? Because that's my
Oh,
favorite part.
absolutely. Yeah. No, me too. I always say that's why funny enough, this next record for Empress will have a lot more, probably the most personal material that's ever been on anything I've released. But in
Mm.
general, I've stayed away from anything very personal just because I want that escape. I don't want to think about my, like, you know, my daily life when I'm listening to music. I want to pretend I'm fighting a dragon or that I'm like, you know, or like
Yes.
finding a chimera or whatever. It's like, for me, it's all about escapism. It's about having fun. And it's about that sort of like awesome moment that happens when you just fully like let go of the suspension of disbelief and you just let yourself fall into something.
Yeah, just immerse yourself in it. When you're in the middle of that process and when you're writing, how is there anything that you do to make sure that that's what you're providing for people? Is there anything you keep in mind to make sure that you are providing that escape and you feel like you're giving that to fans?
Yeah, I would say I always just try to think, is this something that I would read? Is this something I would listen to?
Perfect.
So that way I always try to avoid self-indulgence because there's plenty of things I can do for myself and plenty of things that I do for myself. But if I'm putting it out there, it needs to have something that we can all relate to and find ourselves in.
Yeah. At what point did metal first capture your heart? Because for me, it was the teen years.
Same. When I was
Yeah.
like around 14, 15, um, weirdly enough, my gateway into metal was, gosh, that song, Black Velvet.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
And the reason, like, for me, it's like I just hearing someone sing with this like raspier voice, and gosh, forgive me, I'm forgetting her name. Was it Alana Miles? Is that it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember now.
I
Yeah.
heard her. Yeah, I was just like, oh my gosh, what a cool voice. And then because of that, it made me want to start finding like voices that had that quality and character. And before I knew it, I actually found
Mm.
David Lee Roth and just kept going and going and going. And
I love that. Mr. Personality. He's a fantastic person to learn from. And so is Alana, really, honestly, because that
yeah.
song is both of them. Face cards do not decline. The voice does not decline. Like both of them you could still listen to today without any issue whatsoever. For me, it's funny that you mentioned a specific instrument getting you into the genre too. Being voice is what we're talking about in your case. For me, it was guitar and just the sound of guitar. I don't know why, but I found my mom's like Leonard Skinner CD and I was just obsessed with the sound of that southern rock guitar and the sound of what a guitar could really do. And then I hear Michael Jackson's Beat It. I understand that Eddie Van Halen's the one that's playing the guitar solo that I remember. And I'm like, and then Prince gets involved somewhere. And I'm like, wow. Like, I just fell in love with that instrument first. And I think naturally you just start to gravitate toward whatever genre makes the most use of that instrument. That's a theory that I have. I think that's how music fans get into what they love.
Makes a lot of sense, actually. I like that theory. I've never thought of it that way, but I think you're onto something.
Could be. So tell me about getting on stage with Ailstorm too, because I saw some clips of that. They're a hell of a lot of fun to watch. I can't imagine being the person that's on stage with them and not being like distracted with the antics.
It was hard sometimes. They're such lovely folk and they were so much fun to be around and be with up on stage. I found sometimes there was a few, I would forget that the duck would be behind me and I'd back up too far and just propel forward because it's
You-
just this giant, like inflatable duck. Um,
the duck.
no,
Yes.
it was so much fun. I had like an absolute blast, both on stage and off. Um, yeah, it was super, super fun. Like, how could you not have fun singing a song like Zombies Ate My Pirate Ship?
Yeah. Pirates. Just oh my God. Like I saw the last time that Warped Tour was put on 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was, is where I saw them because they were on that last one.
Oh,
So I
okay.
was that's what and I was like, this is just fun. This is just fun. And
Yes.
for Municipal Waste to like fall right after them, I was like, oh my God.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an
It was a
incredible
lineup.
like back to back. Yeah.
It was like that was the one stage I think I don't remember what they called it that year, but that was the one warp stage where I was like, I'm just gonna park it here. We're good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
park
the
it
party
here.
stage.
That is it. That is really it. So I wanted to highlight and really thank you for something completely different. It's just sharing your experience with abuse recently. I mean, I know you've been public about it, you've given a statement about it, and honestly, that statement really was written in such a selfless way. And I know that that isn't easy to do, but I do think that it's also important for others to understand those types of stories, see those types of stories. Firstly, realizing that they're not alone. Secondly, to identify when weird shit is happening and things we shouldn't tolerate. I'll put it that way. It becomes easier for them to identify those types of serious things. How has your healing journey been since then? Because thank God you're on the other side of that now.
Yeah, no, it's been quite a journey, honestly, and one that's still ongoing. Um, but I would say that for me, what's helped me get through everything has been just like when someone comes up and they share something with me.
Mm,
Whether it was that they saw themselves in my story. I've had people reach out to me saying that like it helped them wake up and maybe see that a situation they were in was not
mm,
good. Um, And I think that ultimately, for me, focusing on gratitude, focusing on the fact that I am here, um, and that I feel so blessed and so lucky to be here. And there's this overwhelming sort of gratitude, but also sort of survivor's guilt that comes along with it. Because
really?
you also know there's so many people who haven't gotten this sort of progression to their story. And nothing like breaks my heart or makes me angrier. And so for me, it's like how can I speak for them? How can I give back? How do I pay this forward? And for me, the biggest way has been to just keep fighting, to keep pushing ahead, to keep hoping that I can be a symbol for whoever needs it and know that like I'm with them,
Mhm.
to know that they're not alone and that there's life after all of it. Um, so far as like where, my story continues to go, I think the most powerful thing that we can take away from surviving something like abuse is that that power is in our hands. We get to write the next page, not somebody else.
Yeah, you could do a whole album on that concept. My God, maybe you have. Maybe you're working on it. I don't know, but that you're right. There is power in that. There is power in seeing that someone who's been through it is still standing, and they are still doing the thing. They're very much, maybe differently shaped, but they're still around, they're still here, and they're still that same person that's worthy of love. I think that's the thing that we forget a lot of the time, or at least, anybody that's been through it. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to say that I really haven't had a whole lot of experience with it. I've had awkward moments and serious moments, but nothing consistent. And anytime somebody tells me about their experience, the number one thing they say is, I just didn't feel like I was worthy. And that's why I never did anything about it. That's why I never said anything about it. I didn't think that I was the priority in that situation. So when somebody comes to you and tells you they're in a shitty situation, how do you comfort them? What can you do for them? What should you do for them?
I think the biggest thing is to let them know that they're not alone, let them to validate their experiences, that the behaviors that are being performed onto them by their abuser are not their fault. They didn't do anything to cause this. They're not overreacting, and
Yeah.
that they need to be safe. I'd say getting them out of the situation should be the primary focus, and sort of being there, because I believe the number is something like 7 to 8 women end up, or 7 to 8 times a woman will go back to her
Wow.
abuser. And the only reason I didn't go back, I went back once, and I didn't go back the second time, and I'm really very thankful I didn't. But the only reason I did not was because I had an incredible, incredible support network. I
Mm.
was surrounded by love and friends, people who just listened to me and let me talk about things as much as I needed to, but kept reminding me to like don't go back. And I would say that's the big thing. When someone identifies themselves as living through a situation like that, support is like the number one thing. The only reason I'm where I'm at this point, gosh, it was 7 months, 2 days ago from the
Wow.
date that I fled. And the only reason I'm at this point is because of the overwhelming support and love that I've received. So I hope that I can be some sort of example of sort of like what happens when a community stands behind a survivor, what happens when we believe women, when we believe victims.
Yes.
Um, we can heal, we can move forward.
Yeah. That's something I've asked for decades now. Like, why don't we believe women when they say weird things are happening? Things that should not be happening are happening. It's almost like we never believe it. Or we go, what did you do to piss them off? And
Right.
that is just, I've never, that is wild to me. That is wild that that's the first thing that we go to. And it's almost like we've been conditioned to think that way. And I'm fortunate, or I feel hopeful, I should say, in that I think we're starting to question this. And I think we're starting to at least pause before we hear about these sort of things and not jump to, well, what did you do to make them that mad? So I hope it
Right,
gets better.
exactly. Oh, me too. I think that's one thing I've heard from a lot of people is that, or other survivors, and they've said that their situation happened however many years ago. Some as recently, unfortunately, as like a year ago even.
Mm.
But seeing my situation and the way it was handled versus their situations has helped tremendously with feeling like one of them had actually told me sort of like a really powerful quote that stayed with me, which is like, when people believed you, they believed me too.
Mm. Okay. And it helps. It helps other people to speak up. It helps other people to make it real, to make it exist. Because there are some, I still think there are some people out there that are like, meh, that just happens in the movies. No, it could be happening down the street. It could be
Yeah.
happening in the apartment next door. Like, could be anywhere. You talked about how important it is to build a community around you and how that was a key thing that helped you. What do you think it takes to build that community?
I think it takes people who are committed to being safe people. And by safe, that means just standing with this victim, saying, like, I believe you, and letting them know that, like, for instance, don't disclose someone's location. If you know a victim's location, that should stay within, that stays like under lock and key.
Yeah,
Um,
private.
letting them letting them know that their story, that you listen and you'll give the attention and hear them and let them talk about this. I always say it feels like showing a wound.
Mm,
Um, letting people just, if they choose to show it to you, to take it in and to listen and just be there. Sometimes there's nothing to say, but just knowing that people see your pain, they see what you went through, and they're there for you. That makes such a difference.
yeah,
And I would say also just the practical side of things, giving people a place to go,
yeah,
safe houses, places that maybe an abuser would never expect to look for their victim. Different people being able to offer homes like that for however long they're able to. I'm very grateful to the people who housed me throughout this year. I spent this entire year just bouncing around for
to get
those
out.
very reasons. And those people I
Yeah.
trusted with my life, and they did not let me down. So I would say to kind of rally around someone, it's the emotional support, it's practical side of things, it's letting them know that they're loved and letting them have those moments where they're breaking down and they're confiding and they're processing and letting that happen and
Hmm.
supporting them through it. These are all ways that we create a community that uplifts victims and, you know, turns them into survivors,
Hmm.
that we're more than what happened to us.
Yeah. It's building mutual trust, building that relationship. Really.
Exactly.
Trust, super, super important. Do you see yourself advocating for victims in the future?
Oh, definitely. There's some behind the scenes things that I'm trying to put together and work on, resource wise and otherwise to try to like be able to reach out and just if someone says something, because I want to help everybody,
Hmm.
but I realize that I'm limited with however much time that I have with just being one person. But
Mm.
there are things I'm working on to better be able to support people, that I'm excited about. So.
Ooh, okay, I can't wait. Well, let's talk about the things that we're excited about too, like musically, personally, anything. What can we look forward to coming from Barbara? What's next?
So I'm thankfully the future is like super super bright. I'm more excited than ever. Um, Empress is wrapping up writing and some recording things I can't go too into, even though I
Yeah.
really want to, for album two.
All right.
I'm super super excited about that. Um, and then, I was announced as a live singer for Helion Prime earlier this summer.
Mm-hmm.
After I went out on the tour with them, we all hit it off so well, and it was just like, let's keep this going. Um, so, gosh, I always feel like such a tease during these interviews because I'm just like, there's all these exciting things, and I can kind of talk about it, but I can't say everything. So, um,
It
but
keeps
there's
us
things I'm not.
excited. We'll take any bit of information that we can have, but I mean, obviously, we'll see it on socials. I'm assuming, right? Best place to catch you.
Yeah, all that stuff and yeah, there's some really exciting live performances and things that I'm doing. And there's a really giant piece of news that I'm
Oh,
extremely excited to share. And
oh.
I guess I'm purposely being a tease of that one. I'm so
She said giant. She said giant.
giant,
Okay, we're ready.
tremendous, big.
Well, thank you for bringing your giant, fun, yet chill, yet so intuitive personality and your lovely voice to the show. I very much appreciate your time and I appreciate you being here. Thanks for hanging out with us, Barbara. I can't wait to see what's next.
Thank you so much for having me. You're lovely. Thank you.